you guys by the end of the week. However, I do ask that if it takes me longer, that just give me at least a week to ask. But like I said, I don't think it'll take me that long. Okay, so we've talked about how the Renaissance started. We've talked about kind of why that was significant. So let's start having a look at how it's going to spread. The main culprit for the spread of the Renaissance was the invention of Johann Gutenberg, or Johannes Gutenberg, which was the printing press. The printing press was essentially a culmination of previous technologies. Movable type was actually developed in China 1,000 years before this, but this combination was new to Europe. So that's why when we say he invented it, what we're really saying is he brought a bunch of other stuff together. The importance of the printing press, however, was that it allowed for the mass production of books. Before this, the only way really to make books was by writing them. It's like you guys are doing. But that took an incredible amount of time, as you can imagine. The other thing is that a lot of the works that were written were not accessible. Even if you had a book, you had to be able to read it. And the fact was that not everyone could, and not everyone could understand all the languages that it could be. For instance, the Bible was pretty much just in Latin, translated from Greek. And so Gutenberg was producing Bibles en masse, and this allowed for the production of information on a scale that had never been possible before. I mean, if you look at the authors, the really famous authors of the Renaissance, Miguel de Cervantes, William Shakespeare, these guys could not have reached their audiences without the printing press. Baldassare Castiglione, Machiavelli, all these folks contributed to the Renaissance and allowed it to spread because of Gutenberg's work. Now, give me half a second and I'll show you what it looks like. But understand that we live in an age of information. To this day, you guys have access to more information in your pockets than people have had for centuries. I mean, if you think about it, you guys have more or less access to all human knowledge at any time. I mean, if there's something you don't know how to do, I can almost guarantee it. You can go find it on YouTube. I fixed my car several times, finding something that's wrong with it, and finding a YouTube video about it, and doing it myself. It's that easy. It's that communication that's just astounding. And it really all kind of begins with Gutenberg. Okay. Now I'm going to move on. If you didn't get everything the way you wanted it, remember the recording will be available, so you can go back if you need to. But this is the printing press. This is what it looks like. And the way that it works is a presser, or printer, would assemble a tablet of words from little tiles. Now, you guys ever use a typewriter? Never seen one, obviously. But basically, it's like metal letters that you would then assemble and make words and make sentences and paragraphs and so on and so forth. And then once you had assembled that, you would set it in a frame inside the press, and you would basically mop it with ink, with a little kind of roller type thing on mop. And then you set a piece of paper inside this part that slides out, set it down, slide it underneath the press, and then you grab this thing, twist it, and that would force it down, forcing the paper against the page that you assembled, and then you can just print them off en masse. Boom, 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 boom. Not the fastest thing in the world compared to what we can do today, but for the time, unbelievably fast. When it was assembled, this is what it looks like. Now, what's interesting about the Bibles of the Middle Ages is that, as I mentioned, they were handwritten. And you might notice you've got this kind of stuff going on, these different shapes and different colors and things like that. The reason for that is if we took all that out, it would be a lot of wasted space. So the monks, in order to make them beautiful and also use up all a very square inch of paper, would do these designs that are called illuminated manuscripts. The Gutenberg Bibles reflected that. I guess you could argue they weren't themselves illuminated, but at the same time, they kind of were. But yeah, it was funny. We just talked about Utopia. So I don't know if you'll need to go over that too much again, but just to kind of summarize, Utopia was a book by Sir Thomas More that was about a perfect society. And if you think about it, if we make a work of fiction about a perfect society, in a way, we're also commenting about what's wrong with our society. Because we can look at where we fall short compared to the supposed utopia, and maybe that's saying, oh, we should change this. That's exactly what Thomas More was doing, only he was hiding it in a bit of fiction so that he wouldn't get in trouble for it. Now, that being said, he actually ends up being executed, but for something unrelated. You guys know King Henry VIII? Yeah, that's one. We'll get to that later. Anyways, moving on to the Protestant Reformation. Actually, no, that's a lie. Yes, no, back to it. I'm not telling a lie. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm almost lying. First, I got to talk about Cervantes and Shakespeare. So you guys have studied William Shakespeare, yeah? What Shakespeare have you guys read? Anything else? That was a good one. Hamlet? No. What's that? No. Why? Huh? Yeah, why? Why do you have to?
I really don't. There's a lot of different versions of it, and they look for the real one.
Let's talk about that for a second. Why was Shakespeare significant? I mean, that's a fair answer. I think definitely that's why one of the reasons we do this so much. Yeah.
Never mind.
Right. I'm sorry, what?
His work showed a deep understanding of humans.
Showed a deep understanding of humans. I suppose that's true. But at the same time, I don't know if that really answers the question as to why do we study. I'm not saying you're wrong about the quiz, Mike. I think that totally is fine. But I mean, as far as the question I'm asking now, why study again? Yeah, but wouldn't that be history? And that's why we're talking about it right now. Why read this stuff? I'm not, for instance, making you read Praise and Folly. Think about this for a second. Shakespeare's language, is it hard to understand?
Yes.
Yeah. I know plenty of very intelligent people who have trouble understanding it. To be or not to be? That's the question. It is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing men. Die! No more. And by sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to is a consolation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep. To sleep, there's a chance to dream. And there's the rub. We're not sleeping to death. What dreams may come, we have shuffled off, this mortal coil must give us promise. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. Would bear the whips and the scores of the tongue. The oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely. The pangs of despise, love, laws, the insolence offers, and the spurs that patient merit the fan-worthy takes. Himself like his quiet escape. Who would fondles bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death? The undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns. What's that about?
I don't know.
I
I lost it.
Crazy.
They really like,
It's not bad committing suicide.
good job.
How'd you learn that?
I memorized it in senior year in high school.
You started to memorize that?
Actually, there's more to it than I think words. I don't want to keep saying it. I was like, you guys are the last, so whatever. But no, what that part is about is Hamlet's considering committing suicide. But what he wants to do is get revenge on his uncle who, killed his father and is, sleeping with his mother. So, yeah, that's deep.
You know the story about the one that he's like, that he tried to kill somebody, but they all ended up dying because he slit his hand with a blade and she touched him and all that. You know that story?
That sounds a bit like Hamlet, because there's something similar to that in Hamlet.
I think maybe that.
Anyway, yeah.
Isn't that story from the statue of like when like the guy hated everyone and then he found love or something and like every night she read him a story?
Yeah, 1001 Arabian Nights. Shakespeare's language was not the language of the people. Well, no one spoke like that in Elizabethan England. So why use that kind of language? Because it's pretty. Is the long and short of his poetry. I mean, if you think about it, we do that a lot in our own, media. I don't know, but this is one thing that I think is really easy. Whenever I read, young adult literature, or, teen whatever movies, and it's just these teenagers are, doing these amazing, soliloquies, and they're talking this really beautiful language. Teenagers don't talk about that. It's so full of lies. Most worst one I think I ever read was Twilight, and not for the reasons you're probably thinking. It's because there's this one scene where they all go down to the beach, and there's this guy who's really trying to impress Bella, so he's he brought an entire cooler of drink because he really wanted her to have the drink that she liked, and that's just got them all. I'm no teenage boy is that considerate. He's like, well, I drank half of it on the way to be cast up. That's a teenage boy, that's what I believe. So that type of language is dumb to use, but it's pretty, and we like to listen to it, and it's exciting. But the other thing is it actually changes how you speak. Well. Weirdly enough, the more you study things like poetry, and again, this is going back to the humanities, it will actually change the eloquence of which you speak. So it makes you sound more professional. So that's a large reason why we study Shakespeare. The other thing is Shakespeare actually invented parts of the English language. So much so that there are words that didn't exist before him. That's kind of an interesting contribution. On the other hand, Cervantes wrote a farce. It's a comedy that was designed to make fun of the medieval system of feudalism. Basically, the story goes that there was a country squire. Not like squire falling around the night, but a squire, a guy who does paperwork for a living. And he was a book nerd. He liked to read a lot, especially the medieval romances. Things like Arthur and Camelot, all that kind of stuff. And the thing is, when he retired, he spent so much time reading that he actually went crazy. He went senile and decided that the world was such an evil place that he needed to fix it. So, what's the way to fix evil? Well, you become a knight and stop it, He literally assembled armor out of stuff he finds in his kitchen, pot for a helmet. He does have a sword, but it's been hanging on his fireplace for 50 years. And then he gets a broom, and that's going to be his lance that he uses on top of his pony, which is an old beat up horse. And his squire is this dude who is kind of a bumbling, basically a nurse who's trying to keep him from hurting himself, but can't say no. So we're going to go on an adventure, son. He's like, oh, please don't do it. Oh, God. He's all behind him. And, like, there's this prostitute. Like, everyone's like, hey, baby, you want to get... And he's like, lady, I shall defend you from these Australians. And Simon's like, oh, no, please don't. And, like, at one point, he's like, a challenge! To fight this dragon! And starts, like, charging off. It's like a building. It's a windmill. So he bounces into it. He's like, I got you, fell beast. And Simon's like, oh, my God, what do I do? And, like, the baker's like, what are you doing to my house? And, like, he's like, I vanquished it, The baker was a crazy dude. And on one hand, it's funny, but on the other hand, it's really sad because, at the end of the book, he kind of, like, snaps out of it. It's like, oh, well, that was weird. And then goes back home to die, basically. And everyone's kind of like, really sad because on one hand, he knows this goofy guy doing all this weird nonsense. It was the sort of romance of it that, like, dude was actually trying to help and make the world a better place, and that's been crushed. And so it's just kind of like this. On one hand, it's really funny, and then it's kind of sad. So that's Don Quixote. You guys have ever seen that? It's actually your textbook. So it's Donquixote. You don't know how to spell it, but it's deep. Good plan. Anyways. But the other thing we're going to talk about is Martin Luther, who I presume you studied at some point. With the Protestant Reformation? No. Okay. Let's do that. All right, so first up, the church at the time was still the most powerful entity in Europe. And one of the things that made it so powerful was it controlled all legal documents, essentially. Anything that was a legal document at the time was almost always going to be backed by the church. And this was important in a society set up as a hierarchy, because one of the things the church was the only thing it could give, let me rephrase that. One of the main things that they had over people was the church was the only organization that could give out the sacraments. And it was believed at the time if you didn't get the sacraments, you went straight to hell. And so basically, if you did something to piss off the church, they would excommunicate you. That you couldn't receive the sacraments, but also all that legal stuff that makes you a lord or whatever is now gone. Now that's really bad the higher up you are, because here's the thing: is if you're pretty low and you've just got some peasants under you, they're not going to really do anything to rebel against you, because what are they going to do? But let's say you're the king, and you've got all these very powerful lords who have their own private armies, and you get excommunicated, and suddenly all the ties and oaths they have to be loyal to you are now gone. In fact, it might benefit them just to, kind of make you disappear, and then maybe the church will reward them and make them the new king. So getting excommunicated was a big deal. Now, Martin Luther was a monk, kind of one of the lowest members of the hierarchy. And he had a major problem with the church selling indulgences, which, you guys know purgatory, what that is? Okay. So, an indulgence is basically something that gets you or someone else, out of the purgatory capacity. Basically, if purgatory is heaven's waiting room, then an indulgence is somebody cutting time off your time in purgatory. The thing is, there's nothing in the Bible about this. And so Martin Luther kind of had a list of complaints against the church, 95 of them to be precise, which he then nailed to the door of the cathedral. And that was kind of a big public place, the Castle Church. Basically, that was in the center of town where everybody met. So this was like everyone saw it. And he was basically challenging the church's power and authority. So it was on. Pretty much immediately, people were after Luther. He actually got called up by Charles V, the Holy Roman Empire emperor, at the Diet of Varus to recant, to take it back, essentially. He refused to. So he got, not only was already excommunicated, but he got kicked out. And basically started this big challenge to the Catholic Church as various princes who decided that maybe they didn't want to share power with the Catholic Church, started ousting it from their positions of power. For instance, in the north of what we think of as Germany, a group of basically Protestant nobles threw in the Protestants and started fighting against the Catholic Church. In England, King Henry VIII established his own version of the Protestant Church, called the Church of England, or the Anglican Church, for various reasons. In addition, the Netherlands, which was actually a set of principalities controlled by Spain, rebelled and tried to form their own country, which they did eventually. And religious war was basically all over the place during this period. Not to mention, there was those crazy Ottomans over in the east who were busy threatening all of Christendom. So things were kind of interesting. Okay, that just pretty much is what I just said about the nailing of the 95 Theses, all that kind of stuff, the diet terms, the idea of promoting self-salvation, all that fun stuff. But really what it comes down to is there's three main principles that he is going to sort of espouse. The first of which is that there is no religious truth but the Bible. The thing I think we have to realize sometimes about church history is that the Bible wasn't always set the way that it is now. It's been kind of futzed with and changed around a little bit. I mean, you guys have experienced to some extent with the sayings of the Mass, because I still have an issue with the hill and also with your spirit thing. That's really less changing things, more like reinterpreting them from the original language, but still, it's not like it's set in stone. It's been changed. But the problem is, what if people decide to add to it, or decide to add other documents they think are just as important as the Bible? Protestantism does that. It says only the Bible matters. And indeed, one of the big pushes of Protestantism is to translate the Bible into the vernacular. So the English for England, Italian for Italy, something. It's the language of the people. That means that everyone who can read the Bible, which is important, because if you can read the Bible and understand it, then what do you need a priest for? Priests in church, if you think about it, it's a class. They read your portion of the Bible, they talk about what it means, and other things. It's interpretation. This was really important whenever you had a majority of the population basically unable to read it, unable to make their own decisions based upon it. But what's going to change is if everyone can read it, then suddenly we open ourselves up to why do we even need priests? Just read the Bible yourself. And indeed, you can then take that argument even farther and say, well, if I don't need a priest, then basically I'm a priest. Yes. Of course. And so, the three main tenets of Protestantism are: the salvation is acquired through faith and faith alone. The Bible is a source of religious truth and the priesthood of believers. Now, salvation is acquired through faith. That means that there's nothing else that is really required, although there's going to be some disagreement about that. For instance, once one group shatters the bond of Christendom, there's going to be a whole mess of different groups forming. All these different Protestant faiths, some of which are going to be just reviled, like the Anabaptists. Essentially, they prescribe that you shouldn't be baptized until you're older. Some groups say you should be baptized once when you're young and baptized once when you're an adult. Some folks had some really crazy ideas, And essentially, these other teachings, this is where you get really the word heresy. Do you guys know what heresy means?
Yes.
What does it mean?
Fake stories.
False teaching, It's the same idea. It's something that's wrong. And so there's going to be sort of a counter-reformation with the Catholic Church called the Council of Trent. But this is going to spawn a series of holy wars between the various groups, which was really not what was intended, but is nevertheless what happens, and can certainly bring quite a few changes. I think we're about out of time, so I think that's what we're going to call it a day. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then, just I'll check your homework from last night tomorrow, but you don't have any homework tonight. You have a night free for me, so enjoy that. And I will stop this.